important to people in ways you might never have imagined. For example, food. Who doesn't like a hot mug of coffee, a nice juicy orange bursting with flavor, or a slice of toast smothered in chocolate hazelnut spread? Well, you might be surprised to know that coffee beans, oranges, hazelnuts, cocoa, and wheat all depend in part on bats. And that's why we call them bat-dependent ingredients. But what do bats do that make these foods dependent on them? Well, let's make a recipe together to find out. In honor of Halloween today, I'm going to make no-bake chocolate pumpkin fudge. It's a really quick and easy recipe that you can make for Halloween or any other occasion. I've got my ingredients already measured out here on the counter. So here we have half a cup of pumpkin puree. You can buy it in cans at the grocery store, especially at this time of year. Make sure you get pure pumpkin and not the canned pumpkin pie filling that is sweetened and spiced. But what's this? Why does it say protectors right next to my pumpkin puree? That's because insectivorous bats help protect pumpkins and many other food crops, as well as timber tree species, from insects that could damage them. In fact, insect-eating bats provide organic pest control services estimated to be worth billions of dollars annually to the North American economy. Other crops that are protected by bats include your coffee, hazelnuts, cocoa. But here closer to home in Alberta, our insect-eating bats have an important role to play in protecting economically important crops such as canola, potatoes, sugar beets, and wheat. Why is there a sign that says pollinators in the front? Oh, right, because those three ingredients are all from plants that depend on bats for pollination. It might be hard to believe, but globally there are over 500 species of plants that rely at least partially on bats to get pollinated. Just like a bee or a hummingbird, there are species of bats who drink nectar. They fly up to the flowers at night, stuff their little furry faces into the flower to lap up the nectar, get pollen all over their fur, and then they fly off to another flower and pollinate. So let's see what ingredients here rely on pollination. The first ingredient we have is half a cup of coconut butter. It looks kind of weird, but it is actually just coconut that's ground up very fine, oil and all. You can buy it at your health food store or in the health food aisle at your local grocery store. Next we have vanilla. We're using pure vanilla extract today, which comes from the vanilla orchid, which is another plant that is pollinated by bats. If you don't have pure vanilla extract at home, that's okay. You can use artificial vanilla extract in your recipe. The third and final ingredient we have today that relies on bats as pollinators is agave syrup. Now this syrup is made from the sap of the blue agave plant that grows in North and South American deserts. Just like our Canadian sugar maples, you can actually boil down the sap to make a nice sweet syrup using blue agave. And for you adults watching, it also is the ingredients that is used to make tequila. So without bats, there's no tequila. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about bats in the future. The last bat-dependent ingredient we need for our recipe today is cocoa powder. So it's kind of over here by the seed spreaders, which is another service that bats produce. So there are a lot of fruit-eating bats that live in the tropical parts of the world, and they actually eat the cocoa pods, and you guessed it, they poop out the seeds. And because they're flying animals, they poop them all over the rainforest, and so they spread cocoa around. A neat thing about cocoa is that it also benefits from bats as protectors, and it also gets some pollination from bats. So it actually benefits in all three ways from bats, which is pretty amazing. So now that I've introduced you to all the ingredients we're using that are bat dependent, it is time to mix them. So I'm going to put everything in this big green bowl. So here's the pumpkin puree, and the cocoa powder. You just put it all in all at once, so it makes it really easy. It's a really quick recipe, like I said. That's the agave syrup going in. Vanilla, and we need a tiny little pinch of salt, which is an ingredient that is not bat dependent, by the way. All right, and the last thing we need to add is the coconut butter, but I have to melt it first before I put it in, because the coconut butter at room temperature is a solid. But once we put it in the microwave, it's going to get liquidy, and we're going to mix it all together, and then the coconut butter is what's going to harden this no-bake fudge so that it becomes more fudge-like, and we can cut it into squares and eat it. So into the microwave it goes. Get all that delicious coconut butter into our bowl. So I'm going to use a hand mixer today to get it really nice and smooth. You can also stir it by hand if you don't have a hand mixer. That's totally okay. So I'm just going to put this in. You want to turn it off occasionally and scrape the sides of your bowl to get all those ingredients, those delicious bat-dependent ingredients all mixed up together. So I've beaten all those ingredients together until they're nice and smooth. They'll never be like perfectly smooth because the coconut butter is a bit grainy because it is ground up coconut. But this is about as smooth as it's going to get. And now it is time to pour this into a baking dish lined with parchment paper or wax paper. So I'm just going to put this in here. And then I'll spread it out in the bottom of the dish. Look how chocolatey it is, yum. All right, and once you've got it nicely spread out in the dish and you try to fill up all the corners and stuff like that, it is time to put this in the freezer to set. So we'll put it into the freezer until it hardens, then we'll take it out, we'll cut it up into squares, and then it's ready to eat. It's as easy as that. So we have all finished our no-bake pumpkin chocolate fudge using bat-dependent ingredients. To sum up, almost all the ingredients in this fudge were ingredients that came from plants that depend in part on bats for protection, pollination, or for seed spreading. If you would like to make your own no-bake pumpkin chocolate fudge, you can find the cookbook on batweek.org under the Educate tab. You'll see a bunch of resources there, including a PDF of the Celebrating Bats, a cookbook of goodies and treats made with bat-dependent ingredients that you can download and make all sorts of wonderful bat-dependent recipes yourself. Now my friend Gabby and I are going to enjoy some of our fudge, and we hope that you will enjoy making it and having some yourselves when you have the chance. Thanks. What do you think, Gabby?
Those are really good for not being baked.